Okay, so are you ready to like dive deep today?
I am so ready.
Because we're going 0 to 1
Nice.
with Peter Thiel's 0 to 1.
Love it.
And I'm very excited about this one.
Me too.
Um, you have armed me with his book
Yes.
and some interesting stories about his time at PayPal.
Yes.
And we're going to kind of use that to unpack all of
Yeah.
his secrets to building the future.
Yeah.
Startup style.
Startup style.
So are you ready to unlock this?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So you provided me with some information about venture capital,
Yes.
which plays right into this.
It does.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Thiel. I mean, his insights are so relevant even today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, Thiel's insights are as timely today as when he first put, pen to paper.
Yeah.
And he really challenges a lot of those deep-seated assumptions that I think we all have about, business and particularly this obsession with competition at all costs.
It's so true. It's almost like he sees it as a disease.
Yeah.
This competition.
He really does.
It's his king kind of mantra.
You almost get the sense that he thinks we've been poisoned by this idea of competition.
Yes.
That it's this kind of like insidious thing that prevents us from actually innovating and making, real progress.
Okay. So I'm ready to hear why he thinks that.
So what's so fascinating about his argument is how he really differentiates between simply copying what everyone else is doing
Right.
and actually creating something new and genuinely new.
Right.
And he champions what he calls creative monopolies, companies that are so innovative that they basically invent their own game entirely.
It's like that part in the book where he uses the example of British food
Oh, yes.
in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
Like you don't see a lot of British restaurants, do you?
You don't. And it's not because no one's thought of it.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not like it's this unexploited market.
Right.
It's that there's just not enough there.
Right.
And I think that's what's so interesting about Thiel's argument is that he's saying, look, if you just endlessly replicate what already exists,
Yeah.
even if you package it slightly differently, it leads to diminishing returns for everybody.
Right.
He really sees striving to be slightly better than the competition as this recipe for stagnation.
Yeah.
He thinks true progress comes from creating so much value that you become a category of one. And, we've seen this time and time again
Yeah.
with companies like Google.
Right.
Like, Google was not just a company.
Right.
It was a whole new category of thinking.
Right.
Same with Apple pre-iPhone.
Yeah.
These weren't just companies. They were whole new categories of thinking.
Okay, so yeah, I mean that makes sense, but once you're at the top like that, how do you prevent your own stagnation?
That's a great question. And it's something that Thiel acknowledges as a real risk.
Yeah.
But I think his argument is that in a static world,
Yeah.
a monopoly is just extracting value.
Right.
But in a dynamic world like the one we live in,
Yeah.
where technology is constantly evolving, monopolies are actually best positioned to drive progress because they have the resources to invest in long-term R&D.
Right.
They can make those 10x improvements that truly shake things up in a way that smaller startups that are constantly fighting for survival simply cannot. They don't have the bandwidth.
Right. And those gains don't just benefit the company. They often lead to massive improvements for society as a whole.
Absolutely.
Like, look at the impact that the iPhone has had on the way we communicate, the way we access information,
Yeah,
the way we live our daily lives.
absolutely.
It's incredible.
I think that's a really important point that often gets lost in this conversation about, monopolies and competition.
Right.
Is that these gains don't just benefit the company, they often lead to massive improvements for everybody.
Right.
And I think that's something that Thiel emphasizes throughout the book.
Right.
Is that we need to be thinking about progress, not just in terms of, individual companies, but in terms of society as a whole.
Right.
And I think that's a really important point that he makes.
So that kind of brings us to another one of his big ideas, which is the power law.
Yes.
And this is where venture capital comes in, right?
Exactly.
So this is the idea that like a tiny fraction of startups will end up generating the vast majority of returns.
Exactly. So he uses venture capital as a way to illustrate how this power law plays out in the real world.
Okay.
Right? It's almost like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, but even more extreme.
Right.
He says, in venture capital, a tiny handful of companies will outperform all the others combined.
Wow.
And this has major implications for you.
Okay.
Even if you are not starting a company, even if you never intend to work for a startup.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
It's all about recognizing where the real growth potential lies.
Okay.
Joining the right company early on, even in a seemingly small role, can be far more impactful than chasing a prestigious title at a company that's already hit its peak.
Interesting.
Right, think about it this way. Owning even a sliver of Google today is worth more than many startups achieve independently. Right, it's about picking the right horse.
Yeah.
It's not just about how hard you work.
So it's like choosing the right investment, but instead of putting money into the stock market, you're putting your time,
Exactly.
your energy,
And
your
it's
skill
getting on yourself.
into this company.
Yes.
And you want to find the company that's going to ride that power law curve to the top.
Exactly. You want to find that company that has the potential to be one of those outliers.
Yes.
And Thiel argues that one key to spotting those companies, to making the right bets in your own career, is to look for companies that are built on what he calls secrets.
Okay.
Now, these aren't necessarily, hidden formulas or trade secrets, but rather they're valuable, non-obvious truths about the world
Oh, yeah.
that other people have overlooked.
Okay.
That's what he means by secrets.
He seems very obsessed with this idea of secrets.
He is.
Like, he even throws some shade at hipsters
He does.
for being, like, too cool.
Too ironic, too detached.
To do detect.
Yeah, he's basically saying we've become too complacent, too accepting of incremental progress, too afraid to challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
and really look for those big, hairy, audacious truths that can lead to those 10x improvements.
He uses his experience as an example,
Okay.
right? A bunch of self-proclaimed nerds
Yes.
who were huddled together in Silicon Valley,
That's right.
utterly convinced that they could revolutionize the entire financial system with this crazy idea called PayPal.
And that's classic Thiel, right? Seeing an opportunity where everyone else saw only obstacles.
Right.
And it all comes back to believing in your own vision, even when it goes against conventional wisdom to go from 0 to 1.
Speaking of going against the grain,
Yeah.
he doesn't hold back when it comes to his views on, like, company culture.
Oh, no, he does not.
Okay, this is not about ping pong tables and beanbag chairs. This is about building a company with people so aligned, so passionate. They're practically
A mafia.
a mafia.
He uses that term playfully.
Right.
But there's a deeper point there. He's highlighting the importance of a shared mission,
Yeah.
a deep-seated belief in what you're building together.
Okay.
It's about finding people who are driven by the problem you're trying to solve, who are all rowing in the same direction with that almost obsessive intensity.
And he uses the PayPal mafia
He does.
too.
Those former colleagues who went on to found companies like Tesla, YouTube, LinkedIn.
It's incredible.
Incredible.
I mean, what I find so interesting about that is that it wasn't just about being smart or talented.
No.
It was about being deeply, almost weirdly aligned
Yes.
on this shared vision.
On a shared vision. And I think that's something that's really important to emphasize because we often think about company culture in terms of perks.
Right.
Ping pong tables, beanbag chairs,
Free snacks.
free snacks. But Thiel's arguing that it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's about shared values.
Right.
A sense of belonging. That's where he argues. You find the energy, the commitment to achieve truly meaningful work, the kind that can change the world.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, ties right back into the power law.
It does.
Even within a company.
Yes.
Certain roles,
Absolutely.
certain contributions
Yes.
are going to have a larger impact
It's proportionately a larger impact.
than others.
And it's about finding those roles, those opportunities to create the most value, not just for yourself, but for the company and potentially for the world.
So it's not just about joining the right company. It's about finding the right role within that company.
Yes,
But you can have the biggest impact.
Exactly. And it requires having the courage to think differently,
Yeah.
to question the obvious, and to look for those opportunities where other people might not even think to look.
Speaking of questioning the obvious, Thiel spends a good chunk of the book challenging another sacred cow,
Sure.
the idea that the best product automatically wins.
Oh, yes. This is where distribution comes in.
Yes.
He argues very forcefully that distribution, how you get your product in front of the right people, is just as critical, if not more so, than the product itself.
Right, because you can have the best product in the world.
Absolutely.
But if it's not getting seen
It doesn't matter.
by the right people, it doesn't matter.
It's like that old tree falling in the woods analogy.
If nobody's around to hear it,
Exactly.
does it even make a sense?
Right. And in this case, if nobody's using your product,
Right.
does it even matter how good it is?
Exactly. And what's crucial here is that distribution, like everything else, follows the power law.
Absolutely.
One channel might be significantly more effective than all the others combined.
Exactly. And it's about identifying and exploiting that channel, the the one that unlocks massive growth for your specific business.
He breaks down different distribution strategies in the book,
He does.
from complex sales,
Yes.
like Elon Musk with SpaceX,
Yes.
landing those massive government contracts,
Yeah.
to viral marketing,
Yep.
which is how PayPal and Facebook
Yes.
achieved such explosive growth.
And he stresses that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to distribution.
Right.
It's about finding the strategy that aligns with your product, your target market, and your overall business goals.
It reminds me of that story about how they tried to market PayPal using Scotty from Star Trek.
Oh, yes.
Talk about a misfire.
A perfect example of how even brilliant minds can completely misjudge the power of distribution.
Okay, so let's talk about AI,
Okay.
because this is where Thiel gets into some pretty, mind-blowing territory, both in terms of its potential and, the anxiety that it creates.
Yeah, it's interesting because he really directly challenges that fear-based narrative
Yes.
that robots are coming for our jobs, that we're on the verge of some dystopian AI takeover.
Right.
Instead of fearing obsolescence, he argues that we should be looking for opportunities for what he calls human-computer symbiosis,
Right.
for using AI to augment our own abilities.
He uses the example of how PayPal tackled credit card fraud,
He does.
right? And they couldn't do it with just algorithms or just humans.
Right.
It required combining human intuition with machine learning
Exactly.
to create a system that actually worked.
And that realization that humans and computers can achieve so much more by working together became the foundation for his next company, Palantir.
Wow.
Think about how far that's come.
Which has been credited with everything from tracking down Osama bin Laden to combating financial fraud,
Incredible.
which is crazy.
It really is.
Or a company that was built on the idea that humans still have a role to play in the age of AI.
Right. And I think that's such an important message because there's so much fear and anxiety around AI.
Right.
And Thiel is saying, look, we don't need to be afraid of the future. We need to embrace it.
Yeah.
We need to find ways to work with these technologies, to augment our own abilities.
It's not about replacing humans. It's about empowering them
Exactly.
to do things that maybe they couldn't have done before.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful and optimistic message.
Okay, so we've got creative monopolies,
Yes.
the power law, the importance of secrets, and the power of human-computer symbiosis.
It's a lot.
Anything else we should keep in mind as we go deeper into 0 to 1?
Well, he offers a really insightful framework for evaluating business ideas, something he calls the 7 questions every startup should be able to answer.
Oh.
Think of it as a litmus test to avoid catastrophic mistakes.
Okay, it's like a checklist for avoiding those rookie errors.
Exactly.
It can doom a company before it even really gets off the ground.
Precisely. And he illustrates this using the clean tech bubble as a cautionary tale.
Okay.
It was a sector full of companies with noble intentions trying to solve one of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
Right.
But they often lacked those solid business fundamentals that Thiel outlines in his 7 questions.
Right. Good intentions only get you so far.
Exactly.
Let's dive into those 7 questions.
Okay, let's do it.
And see what lessons we can learn from both the clean tech successes and failures.
Okay.
So first up, the engineering question.
Okay.
Is now the right time to start your business with the technology available today?
Timing is everything in the startup world.
It is.
It's not enough to have a great idea. You need to be entering a market at the right moment with the right technology at the right price point.
He uses the example of solar energy to illustrate this, right?
He does.
Despite being essential for a sustainable future,
Right.
solar tech simply wasn't advancing as quickly as it needed to justify all the hype and investment.
It's a classic example of what Thiel calls a premature breakthrough, where an idea comes along before the technology is truly ready.
So even if you're very passionate about a problem,
Yes.
it's crucial to be honest about whether the technology and the market are ready to support a viable business.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up on Thiel's checklist, the timing question. Are you starting with a big share of a small market?
This takes us right back to the power law
Right.
and the importance of dominating a niche.
Okay.
It's far easier to achieve dominance in a small, well-defined market than to try to compete head-on with established players in a crowded space.
So it's like finding that pond
Exactly.
where you can be a big fish instead of getting lost in the ocean.
100%. And he uses the example of Amazon, starting with books and then gradually expanding to become the everything store.
Right.
It's a brilliant example of starting small, thinking big, and strategically expanding your reach while maintaining a dominant position in each new market you enter.
So you've got the right timing,
Yes.
a focused market, but what about the people?
The people.
That's Thiel's next question, right?
That's right.
Do you have the right team?
Yes.
Not just a team, the dream team.
The dream team, and Thiel is adamant that this is non-negotiable.
Right.
Building the right team is absolutely crucial, and he should know.
You should.
This guy built a company with people who literally built bombs in their spare time.
It's amazing.
So he clearly knows a thing or two about spotting unconventional talent.
Clearly.
And for him, it's not just about what's on your resume.
Right.
It's about that spark, that passion, that shared sense of purpose.
He values that so much.
Yeah, he does.
Passion.
He does.
Almost as much as he values technical skills.
Almost as much, if not more so.
Right.
He's looking for people who are not afraid to challenge assumptions, who thrive on solving difficult problems, and who are in it for the long haul.
So we got the timing,
Yes.
the market,
Yes.
the A-team.
The A-team.
Next up, distribution.
Yes.
Thiel's fourth question. Do you have a way to not just create your product, but to actually get it into the hands of your customers?
This is where so many companies stumble.
I know.
Even those with incredible products.
That's so true.
Thiel really hammers home the point that distribution should be a core part of your business plan from day one, not an afterthought.
Not an afterthought.
Not something you figure out later.
Right.
You need a plan to get your product into the hands of customers, and that plan needs to be as tailored and strategic as your product development.
He makes a comparison to sales.
He does.
He says that even if you don't have a dedicated sales team, you're still selling.
You are.
You're selling your vision,
That is
your
fair.
product, your company.
Your story.
It's about understanding your customers,
Yes.
your market,
Yes.
and finding the most effective way to reach them.
And he uses some very different examples in the book to illustrate his point.
Right.
He talks about Elon Musk's SpaceX, which relies on securing these massive government contracts.
Right.
And then he talks about ZocDoc, a company that's built a billion-dollar business by painstakingly building relationships with doctors and patients.
Wow.
Right. So it's about finding that strategy that works for your specific business.
So distribution isn't just about marketing.
No.
It's about understanding that entire customer journey,
100%.
from awareness to purchase to advocacy.
Exactly. It's about creating a seamless and compelling experience for your customers at every touch point.
All right.
And it's about constantly experimenting, iterating, and adapting your approach as your business grows and evolves. And that long-term thinking brings us to Thiel's next question. Durability. Will your market position be defensible 10, 20 years down the line?
So he's really pushing us to think beyond the next quarter, the next funding round.
Exactly. He's asking us to identify our moat.
Our moat.
What makes our business, our product, uniquely resistant to being disrupted or copied, even years from now?
Okay.
He highlights factors like proprietary technology, network effects. Think how much harder it is to compete with Facebook the more friends are already on it.
Right.
Economies of scale and branding as critical elements of building a moat.
And those were really the elements that were missing in a lot of the clean tech wave.
Right.
Many companies were building essentially commodity products.
Yes.
Like solar panels or wind turbines.
Right.
In a market that was flooded with competition and shrinking profit margins.
And that's where that lack of durability really hurt them.
They solved the problem, but they hadn't locked in their advantage.
It's a good reminder that building a truly durable business requires more than just riding a trend.
Right.
It needs a real strategy to create and maintain a competitive advantage.
Okay.
Something that makes you uniquely valuable in the long run.
Okay, so sixth on Thiel's list, the secret question. This one feels very on brand for him.
It does, doesn't it?
Have you identified a unique opportunity that others either haven't noticed or haven't figured out yet?
He's pushing us beyond just incremental improvements.
Right.
This goes back to his earlier point about the importance of uncovering those hidden truths,
Right.
those non-obvious insights that others are missing.
So many great businesses were built on insights that seem so obvious in retrospect,
Absolutely.
but were invisible to most people at the time.
Think about Airbnb.
Right.
People were already renting out spare rooms.
Right.
But nobody had thought to create a global platform for it.
Right.
Or Uber
Yeah.
taxis existed.
Yeah.
But the seamless connection of riders and drivers through their phones, that was the breakthrough.
So he's saying it's not enough to just be passionate about a problem.
No.
You need that unique angle, that almost contrarian insight.
Yes.
That unlocks a solution that no one else has quite grasped.
Right. Exactly. And that's where the clean tech bubble, for all its good intentions, really struggled.
Yeah.
Because many companies were chasing the same secret, the obvious need for clean energy,
Right.
but without that unique insight,
Yeah.
that differentiable advantage.
It's like the old saying, if you're chasing the same rabbit as everyone else,
Right.
you're not going to catch it.
Exactly.
You need to find your own rabbit.
You got to find your own rabbit.
Okay, so that brings us to Thiel's seventh and final question,
Okay.
the sales question.
Okay.
Do you have the right sales strategy?
This is a big one.
It is a big one, and it's one that a lot of, especially tech companies,
Yes.
really kind of overlook.
Especially engineering-driven companies,
Yeah.
they tend to overlook this one.
There's this kind of Silicon Valley myth
Yes.
that a great product will sell itself.
Right. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
Thiel completely dismantles that.
He's got some pretty strong opinions about this.
He does. He really believes in the art of selling. And not just in the traditional sense.
Right.
He argues that everyone is selling something.
Yes.
Whether it's an idea, a service, even just your own skills and talents.
He says, if you look around and you don't see the salesperson, it's probably you,
Exactly.
which is such a good line.
It's so true.
No matter how brilliant your idea is, how talented your team,
Yes.
you still have to be able to sell that vision to the world.
100%.
Investors,
Yeah.
customers, even your own team.
You got to sell it.
They have to buy into what you're building.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to just build something great.
No.
You have to be able to articulate its value,
Yes.
connect with your audience,
Yes.
persuade them to join you on the journey.
And that takes us beyond just the technical aspects of building a product or a company
Right.
into the realm of communication, storytelling,
Yeah.
even psychology.
So we've covered Thiel's 7 questions,
Mm-hmm.
which really do feel like a masterclass in building a successful business.
They do.
But he doesn't stop there.
No, he does not.
He gets into some really profound territory toward the end of the book,
He does.
exploring the relationship between humans and technology, the future of progress.
He goes deep.
It's getting almost philosophical.
It is. He grapples with some really big existential questions.
Right.
Going beyond the nuts and bolts of business into what it means to build a better future.
It's true.
And he does it all while weaving in these fascinating stories from his own life.
Yeah.
From his childhood love of science fiction to building PayPal and Palantir.
Which is nice.
It is. It makes it really personal.
It reminds us there's a human story behind every successful company.
Absolutely.
A vision.
Yes.
A set of values that drive its success.
100%.
And those are the things that ultimately shape the future.
They are.
Speaking of stories and visions,
Yes.
Thiel dedicates a whole chapter to the founder,
He does.
that individual who takes a company from 0 to 1.
That's right.
And he paints this really interesting picture of the founder,
He does.
this almost mythical figure,
Larger than life.
someone who embodies both brilliance and a touch of eccentricity.
Oh, absolutely.
He even compares them to celebrities.
He does.
Talk about that double-edged sword of fame and scrutiny,
Right.
the fickle nature of public opinion.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about Bill Gates going from like tech hero to facing antitrust lawsuits,
That's right.
to Steve Jobs being ousted from Apple, only to return and make it the most valuable company on the planet.
It's a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster.
It is.
And Thiel doesn't shy away from the potential dark side of that founder myth.
He doesn't.
He acknowledges that risk of hubris,
Of course.
that danger of becoming so wrapped up in your own narrative that you lose touch with reality.
That's right.
It's a bit like the classic hero's journey.
It is.
You know, there's trials and temptations along the way.
Absolutely.
But he also seems to be saying that a certain amount of unconventional thinking,
Yes.
of weirdness,
Yes.
is almost a prerequisite for truly disrupting the status quo.
That's right. You have to be a little bit different. To see the world differently. To challenge those assumptions.
He uses his experience with the PayPal founding team as an example.
He does.
This group of self-described nerds
Right.
who are obsessed with science fiction and cryptography.
Not exactly your typical boardroom.
Not exactly.
Right.
Some of them even built bombs in their teenage years.
That's right.
Not exactly following the rules.
Oh, not
And
exactly.
yet that same team went on to create one of the most disruptive companies of the internet era.
They did.
It seems like he's suggesting that a healthy disregard
Yes.
for the status quo,
Absolutely.
for how things have always been done,
Yeah.
is almost essential.
It's essential for building something truly new.
So a little mad scientist might not be a bad thing,
Maybe not such a bad thing.
at least when it comes to founders.
Maybe.
But it takes more than just being different.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about channeling that unique perspective, that
Yes.
willingness to break the mold
Yes.
towards a greater purpose.
Yes, exactly. It's not enough to just be weird. You have to be weird and have a vision.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about his thoughts on the future of progress.
Right.
It seems like he's wrestling with this fundamental question.
Yeah.
Are we headed for a future of abundance and breakthroughs, or one of stagnation and conflict?
The million-dollar question.
Is he optimistic, or is he pessimistic?
You know, he's definitely not one for simple answers.
Great.
He outlines 4 possible scenarios for the future.
Okay.
One dominated by globalization,
Okay.
one driven by technological advancements,
Okay.
one where we hit a global plateau,
Okay.
and one where those technological advancements lead to a radically better future, maybe even a singularity.
Okay.
So he's covering all his bases.
He seems especially wary of globalization as the main driver of progress.
He is.
It's like simply spreading existing technologies and ways of doing things
Yes.
around the world isn't enough.
It's not enough.
It's like trying to solve traffic by
Right.
just building more roads.
Right.
It might work temporarily,
Yeah.
but it's not a long-term solution.
It's not going to get us where we need to go.
Right.
And he argues that without genuine technological innovation,
Yes.
we're essentially just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Ooh, I like that.
We're making incremental progress, but we're not addressing the fundamental challenges
Right.
facing humanity.
He uses the example of China,
He does.
which has obviously experienced rapid economic growth.
Yes, by adopting Western technologies,
Right.
but at a huge environmental cost.
Right.
And I think that's the point.
Right.
Globalization without innovation
Yes.
is ultimately unsustainable.
So for Thiel, technology is the key
It is.
to unlocking a truly sustainable and abundant future.
That's right.
One where we're not just replicating the past,
Yes.
but creating something truly new.
And he's specific about the kind of technology that he believes is most promising.
Okay.
Technology that empowers people, that helps us overcome our limitations, that allows us to do things we couldn't do before.
So this is where his belief in human-computer symbiosis really comes into play.
Exactly. It's not about machines replacing humans. It's about machines augmenting our abilities,
Right.
helping us to reach our full potential.
He uses that example of the supercomputer
He does.
that was trained to recognize cats.
With 75% accuracy.
Right. 75% accuracy.
Which is impressive.
Which is very impressive.
Except a 4-year-old child can do it with almost perfect accuracy.
Right.
And I think his point is that computers and humans excel at different things.
Absolutely.
And the greatest potential lies in finding ways for those strengths to complement each other.
Which is so interesting to think about.
It is.
All the problems that we could potentially solve.
Yes.
The breakthroughs that we could have
Absolutely.
if we could harness the power of AI,
Yes.
but still retain that uniquely human spark.
That's the key.
That's the
It's finding that balance
Yeah.
between the power of technology and the ingenuity of the human mind.
And that brings us back to the founder.
It does. To that individual
Yes.
who can bridge that gap between the present and the future.
That's right.
Who can see those possibilities and bring them to life.
Who can connect the dots.
Right.
And I think that's what Thiel is arguing,
Yeah.
that the founder isn't just a job title,
Right.
it's a mindset.
It's a way of thinking.
It's a willingness to embrace the unknown and build something new.
He even writes that the founding moment never truly ends as long as a company keeps innovating.
That's right.
That the spirit of disruption and creativity should be woven into the very fabric of the company.
100%. It's about fostering a culture of continuous learning,
Right.
of experimentation, of challenging the status quo, even when you're no longer a scrappy startup.
So what does all of this mean for those of us who aren't founders, who
Yeah.
aren't building the next Google or SpaceX?
Yeah, what are the key takeaways from 0 to 1 for the everyday person?
What can we take away and apply to our own lives? Well, I think one of the most powerful and actionable takeaways is the importance of cultivating that contrarian mindset.
Okay.
It's about questioning assumptions,
Yes.
looking for opportunities where other people see only obstacles,
Right.
and believing that there are still secrets out there worth uncovering.
It's about really thinking for yourself,
Yes,
challenging the status quo,
100%.
not being afraid to go against the grain,
Even in small ways.
even in small ways.
You don't have to start the next Google
Right.
to have a contrarian mindset.
To be a contrarian thinker.
Exact.
And it's about finding those areas where you can create the most value.
Absolutely.
Where can your unique skills and perspective have the biggest impact?
Because even within a company,
Right.
Thiel argues certain roles and contributions matter far more than others,
Right.
right? And so it's about finding those roles.
Finding the right company
Yes.
and the right role.
The right role within that company.
Yeah, that's so interesting. He even says that joining the right company early on, maybe even in a seemingly insignificant role,
Right?
can be far more impactful than chasing a prestigious title
That's right.
in a company that's already plateaued.
It's about recognizing where the real growth potential lies.
Where can you ride that wave?
Exactly. Where can you be a part of something truly groundbreaking?
Right.
Even if it's not immediately obvious to everyone else.
Even if it doesn't have that like sexy title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about betting on the right horse.
And that takes courage
It does.
to trust your instincts,
Absolutely.
to go against the crowd,
To believe in something that other people might not yet see.
to go against the grain a little bit.
That's where the real rewards lie,
Yeah.
both professionally and personally.
Because ultimately, Thiel's arguing that we all have the potential to be founders, to be creators,
I do.
to build something new
100%.
and meaningful with our lives.
I love that.
He also dives into the nature of technology and how it can be used to shape the future, doesn't he?
He does, and he really challenges that common assumption that technology is simply a neutral tool.
Which it's not.
It's not. He argues that it can be used for good or for evil, to empower or to control, and he really wants us to be thoughtful about technology, to be aware of its potential downsides, but also to embrace its power to solve problems and create a better future.
Right.
It's not all, sunshine and roses.
Right. He uses examples like nuclear weapons,
Right.
the rise of social media,
Yes.
even the potential of AI
All of it.
to illustrate how technology can be this double-edged sword.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
So it all comes down to our intentions as the creators, as the users of that technology.
100%. Thiel really emphasizes our responsibility to be stewards of technology, to guide its development in a way that benefits humanity, not harms it.
So it's about being intentional with our innovations, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that technology serves our needs and helps us to create the kind of future that we actually want to live in, not some dystopian nightmare.
That's right. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
Right.
It's about shaping the future instead of letting the future shape us.
It's about not becoming slaves to the technology, but being the masters of our own destiny.
Exactly.
Using technology to enhance our lives.
Yes.
Not to run them.
100%.
Okay, so we've covered so much ground here.
We have.
We've talked about contrarian thinking,
Yes.
uncovering those hidden truths, the power of human-computer symbiosis, finding our own path, mastering persuasion, learning from the mistakes of the past,
To lie.
embracing definite optimism, building those creative monopolies, understanding the role of luck versus skill, cultivating a strong company culture, approaching competition strategically,
Right.
building a solid foundation, focusing on our one thing, assembling a great team, embracing a more expansive view of progress, cultivating boldness, and using technology ethically.
Don't forget building a strong team. Oh, and building a strong team.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yeah.
It's almost overwhelming how much wisdom
It is.
is packed into this one book.
It really is. Thiel covers so much ground, but if I had to distill it all down
Yeah.
to one central theme,
Yes.
it would be the importance of long-term thinking.
Ah, there it is, playing the long game.
Playing the long game, exactly. And I think that's something that's so relevant today
It is.
because we live in a world that's so obsessed with the short term,
Right.
with instant
You see
gratification,
media.
social media, all of it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Thiel is really challenging us to resist that urge to think beyond the next quarter,
Right.
the next election cycle, even the next decade,
To zoom out.
to zoom out and ask ourselves,
Yeah.
what kind of world do we want to live in?
What kind of impact do we want to have?
What problems do we want to solve?
Hmm.
What legacy do we want to leave behind?
He uses those really big examples.
He does.
Right, like the building of the pyramids, the
Yeah.
founding of universities.
Right. The pursuit of these big scientific breakthroughs,
Things that took generations to come to fruition.
things that took generations,
Yeah.
generations to actually see the fruits of their labor.
And yet they've had an impact that has lasted for centuries.
It's incredible.
Even millennia.
The power of playing the long game.
That's the power of playing the long game.
So how do we even begin to apply that
Right.
to our own lives, to our own career?
Right. Because we're not all building pyramids here.
Right. We're not all Elon Musk.
Exactly. But I think it starts with identifying those things that truly matter to us. Those big, ambitious goals that ignite our passions and give us a sense of purpose.
Find your passion.
Find your passion.
your purpose.
And then be willing to invest in it,
Right.
even if the payoff isn't immediately apparent.
So invest your time, your energy
Your resources, your heart and soul,
into those things that light you up.
because those are the things that are going to make a difference in the long run.
Don't chase the shiny objects.
Don't chase the shiny objects. Right.
Chase the things that matter.
Chase the things that light you up inside.
Because those are the things that are going to make a difference, not just in your life,
Right.
but in the world.
This is about building for the future, not just for today.
100%.
It's about recognizing that our actions today
Yes.
have consequences that will ripple far into the future.
That's right.
And we have to embrace that responsibility.
We do.
Use our time and our talents wisely
Yes.
to create something lasting, something meaningful,
Something that matters.
that will benefit not just ourselves, but future generations.
That's the legacy we leave behind.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into 0 to 1,
Yes.
what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll be inspired to think bigger, to challenge assumptions, to find their own unique path, and to have the courage to build a future they want to see. Because as Thiel so eloquently argues, the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we create. That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the mind of Peter Thiel.
My pleasure.
And remember, listeners, the founding moment never truly ends. As long as we keep innovating, keep questioning, and keep striving to build a better future. That's the essence of going from 0 to 1.